Hey y'all, my name is Mark Rockwell.
And I'm Josiah Goss.
And we are Two Nuts on a Tree, and this is the Rockwell Farms Garden Show.
Glad you're here.
Yep, every week we appreciate you tuning in. And this week we're going to talk about how we constructed this personal garden. This is where we do all of our testing. And also my brother Norman runs the Rockwell Farms Research Center in Mississippi. And he does the same thing with the Magnificent 7 soil that we use and the cinder blocks, so we'll get into that. And what else are we going to talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about some fertilizers today, what we did in our test garden, the things that we have tested this year, and then...
yeah, Josiah's a Royal Gold fan.
I am. I have become one.
Right.
Another thing we'll talk about is how we take care of our tomatoes, growing them underneath our trellis and up through the trellis, and how we keep them disease-free.
Right, because we understand that, you know, a man's world can be going to hell in a May basket, but if his tomatoes are good, life is good.
That's right. That's good.
So, with no further ado, I'll take you on back and show you some of the tomatoes we grow.
All right.
This is the area where we grow our tomato plants. This is where we test different varieties, we test different insecticides, and also the fungicides and fertilizers. So let me start first with this tomato plant right here. First of all, we use a heavy gauge collapsible cage to hold up our tomato plants. The reason for that is that when we switch it out for our fall crops, it's easily stored and just flattens and we stack them. I really like this cage. In my opinion, it's the best on the market. These tomato plants right here are the beefsteak. I'm not a big fan because of the ridges right here. It's hard to get, I've never been a big fan of beefsteak. It's hard to get a good slice out of it. But the reason why I'm bringing it to this plant right here is you see this curling right here? It's not a disease, it's not infected, so don't fret. Our tomato plant will do that to preserve itself when it's really hot. We've had hot temperatures, it's the third week of July, and it will curl up the ones that they don't need, but yet it will use the ones that it does need. And what this does, it keeps the plant from transpiring, meaning we sweat, but plant transpires. Water comes out of its system, it covers it up so it keeps it from drying out. It's kind of a self-protective type thing. But as you see, we still get a lot of fruit on the tomato plant. Over here, this is one of my favorites. What variety is this? Let me see. This is the, oh yeah, this is the black creme. I like the black creme. And on this side, we have the brandy wine. Now, just so that y'all know, let me show you something. These are the best things ever created, these little clippers. We've had these for years and they're still sharp. I love these because I'm notorious for tearing up the plant when trying to get fruit off. These are great because you just go up and snip. Now, I wanted to show you this one right here. See this cracking right here? This is from us not having consistent watering. This is, we got busy a couple weeks ago. We were not watering it consistent like we should have. That's why we did put mulch down. And after we've done the mulch, we have not had this cracking. But I saved this for y'all so that you can see. You see how the tomato plant's kind of what we call blushing right now? This is the time that you want to pick your tomatoes. If you take this tomato and put it in a paper bag, it will produce something called ethylene gas, which is a natural hormone. And in about a week from now, this will be really red and ready to eat. This tomato has already absorbed all the nutrients and flavor that it possibly can have, so it's turned red to let you know it's time to eat. Now, as far as our maintenance program is concerned, don't let me forget about that. You always have these wild hairs. On a tomato plant, if you see right down in here, if you look at the plant, this is what you call a node. Node in between is the internode. Right here in the crevice of this node, you see that? Right there, you always want to pinch that out, okay? If you pinch that out, tomato, which is an actual vine, it'll keep growing and growing straight, and you'll have less of a bush and more of a vine, which is good because then you can maintain it. And when you have stuff coming into your aisle, this is what you call magic tape. You give it a little tie right here, tie it up here, and you're good to go. Okay? So as far as tomato plants in our entire garden is concerned, this magic tape and these little clippers, and we sell these. We were at a trade show, and this was one of the hottest items, I believe. People were just buying them off the guy's shelf the last day of the trade show. And we love them. They're very sharp, they work great, and they just fold up and go into your pocket. Now, what else do we have here? Oh yeah, if you look on all of our tomato plants, we trim them up about 15, sometimes 18 inches from the ground. Now, there's a few reasons why we do that. Number one, those are the leaves that get disease. Your early blight, late blight, powdery mildew, rust. Most of your disease happens down here. That's why we take those leaves off after the plant's about 24 to 30 inches. We'll remove all these leaves. That way when we're spraying, we can spray down here up and get all the insects that are underneath the leaf. We don't have any insects because we're doing good on our spraying. But that's why we trim from the bottom. You don't need those leaves. All they do is they maintain the disease structure, so make sure you remove that. So Josiah, and if you see this, notice we have really, really thick stalks. On some of our tomato plants, we have like 1-inch stalks. Well, Josiah is going to tell you how we get those nice big stalks through our fertilizing program, and that's where that Royal Gold comes in.
I'm going to show you the fertilizers that we used this season, growing season. We also used this one our last growing season, and man, our tomatoes have just been super healthy from these, little to no problems, and they've produced a lot and they've tasted really good. This product that we've got here, Mark, this is our Grow.
I'm his Vanna today.
This is by Royal Gold. This is their Crown Jewels. Their Crown Jewels line. Now this company, they actually started in the cannabis industry in Humboldt County, California, and they grew older, decided they wanted to start their vegetable gardens and be really good at it, and I think they are really good at it.
Yeah.
If you go in our earlier videos, you'll see how I applied these, and there's two methods that you can apply these. You can do this as a powder top dressing and water it in, or you can also use it as a tea, which works really good as well. And with that tea, you'll just mix that up in water, your measurements for that plant up in water. I think for one plant, it is 4 to 8 ounces per cubic foot for established plants. Now, when you are mixing any of these 3 products, it's all the same measurements. When you're mixing any of these 3 products as new planting, you're going to do 1 cup for a cubic foot. So basically 1 cup for new planting. Right. So when you dig your hole, you can mix that in.
Thing I like about teas is that it translocates into the plant immediately.
Right. Right. It helps it, it is not water soluble, so you have to mix it up, let it set. But when you go to pour it, that water acts as a vehicle to get that down in the root system a little bit better and quicker. And I really like that method as well. So when you start your garden, this is actually the one that you want to use. This is higher in nitrogen. This has lower numbers on your NPK, so it's a little bit harder to mess up and burn up your plants. You could certainly do that, but it makes it a lot more foolproof, which I really like. You usually start with your Grow. Now, the thing that I like with this company is rather than just having one fertilizer for the whole plant growth, they have 3 sets, or they have 3 fertilizers for the different stages in plant growth, which I think is really awesome, because really when your plants are going through, they do need different things for their plant stages they're in.
And that brings us to
the bloom. So the bloom, we like to use that when your plants get about, maybe 2 foot tall and they just start to put on blooms. That's a good time to use that. It's higher in phosphorus, which is going to help those blooms push out. Also, this is super high in calcium. That calcium is super
Yeah.
important. You don't want to get blossom end rot.
Right.
If you have a problem with your flowers falling off the plant, it's usually a calcium deficiency.
And if you're wondering why it has less nitrogen than phosphorus, is because it kind of slows the growth down.
Correct.
And that way the phosphorus has more of a chance to work. You don't want a lot of vegetative growth, especially on your tomato plants, where they're 6 foot above your head.
And no tomatoes on it.
Exactly.
So.
And another thing he's right about blossom end rot. We do not have blossom end rot on any of our tomato plants, our
Correct.
cucumbers, or our zucchini or your yellow squash.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and then you switch over right now, again, 3rd week of July. And so right now we're actually switching over to the Imperial Boost. This is an NP.
I love that product.
PK booster. And so this one is going to be higher in phosphorus and potassium. And so that's going to help that plant push right along. We started using this last year about this time. And typically your plants kind of peter out and they're done producing because it's so hot out. This really pushed them to keep them going and producing.
That's what turned this on to this company.
Yeah.
We applied this at the end of the season last year.
Well,
and that's, I think, our turning point.
Right, and I think we have somewhat turned from Epsoma, and one of the reasons is the amount. They did have a really good amount of calcium in their products.
Is 8%.
But this one right here, this is 17%.
Yeah,
that is
awesome.
almost hard to find in any of your fertilizers. And again, the calcium's great for good tasting fruit. Blooms won't fall, and you don't get that blossom end rot.
And you mentioned this Bowman and other, first of all these are organic. And the reason why we do organic fertilizers is because a healthy plant resists insects and disease a lot more than any other plant. And the fertilizer that you're putting into your fruit, you're putting into your body. So if you read the ingredients in these products, those are great elements that your own body needs. People don't think about molybdenum, boron. All those are very important. And if I could touch on calcium again, calcium has a tendency to leach out of the soil. That's why it's really important for you to have them in all your fertilizers.
Completely agree.
Third thing I like about this is that the fertilizer is not derived by
chicken manure.
Yeah. That to me is extremely important. These are from seabird
guano.
Seabird guano. Now, and I've done a lot of research on this personally. With the chicken manure, you are dealing with antibiotics, pesticides, and all kinds of other things that they've used to grow those chickens. It poops out of the bird, and then it stays and it's in the manure. Now, we've had people tell us, oh no, our fertilizer's heat treated. There is no hormone or pesticide in our bird poop. That's a bunch of hockey puck. Because if you heat treat a fertilizer, number one, you're killing all the beneficial bacteria, right?
Yeah.
And you're dumbing down the nitrogen, and I just don't trust them.
Yeah.
This is from seabird guano, which is totally natural, no pesticides, no antibiotics or anything of that nature. And Josiah's the one that educated me on how important that was. Remember the
well, there was wars over the Guano Islands back in, I think it was, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but back in, I think it was 1879 to 1881, I want to say it was, and I could be totally wrong on that. But yeah, there were wars over the Guano Islands because it was so prized in agriculture. Another thing about the chicken manure is we live in Chicken USA here in Northwest Arkansas. You know, we have all of these big chicken companies, chicken houses everywhere. And so it's just a really cheap product, and I think a cheap out. Now, it certainly does help in the garden, but when you can have premium versus something that's just there because it's readily available, I think that's a good route to go.
All right, I'm glad you touched on that because I'm cheap. Ask him.
Sure.
And the cool thing about this is that the crown jewel is a little bit more expensive on the front end, but you use a lot less of it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sure.
When we're using other organic companies, I found myself having to use a buttload of fertilizer around my plants to get the results.
That's right.
Remember?
It made us pretty upset. Yeah.
That's right.
We were mad because the
I
people,
went through so much of their fertilizer.
the average gardener, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's already crazy enough to go to the store and try to buy organic produce, but to grow it is still super, it can be super crazy. And so that's right, we actually went on a hunt for premium fertilizers that are budget friendly. And it really has saved us quite a bit of money, even just taking care of our garden. So,
and show them the product where if we run in trouble.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'll be your Vanna.
Okay. I think Christy did far better.
She did. I tell you, we got a lot of people calling us saying,
yeah,
she's awesome.
She is. So this one is Neptune's. This is their tomato and veg. Just because it says tomato and veg doesn't mean it can't be used on other things. I want to be clear on that. This is also really good fertilizer for flower beds, trees, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But this one's great for your tomatoes and veg. We actually met the owners at the show that started this company.
They're out in Maine.
Yeah, they sure are. And they're just awesome people and have really good product. But this one is a good revitalizer. We like using this when something's doing a little bit poor and we just need a quick instant, because it is a liquid fertilizer, it breaks down into that soil a lot quicker and it can feed your plants a whole lot quicker. So we really like this one.
Going back to price, this is a gallon. It's 128 ounces. This will make 128 gallons. Okay. And if you use it as a tea and spray your plant, you use half that. So now we're talking about 2 times 128, 256 gallons.
Yeah, you can do a foliar feeding or a root feed, and it is just, it soaks in pretty fast.
Big bang for the buck.
Good revitalizer for your garden. You will go back here. Let's look at these tomato plants. Again, what we did to keep disease down, Mark somewhat went over this in our last video, but we trimmed the branches, any lower branches, about 12 to 18 inches up. We want to trim those off. We'll eliminate those. Now, when we planted our tomatoes, we also planted them a few inches deeper.
Oh, a lot deeper than that.
Has changed our tomato world. What that does, you know those little tiny hairs on that bottom of the tomato, those have potential to turn into roots and they will take root. So by planting your tomato plants a whole lot deeper, what we did is we took off the bottom little leaves and everything that was on the bottom. We planted that a lot deeper than it actually goes, just to where we had a little bit of that tomato plant sticking up, filled in with dirt. That really helps your plants get a better root system established quicker. And the quicker you have a root system established, the more fruit you're going to be getting off of it, the quicker. And so at the bottom here, let me get this cantaloupe out of the way so you can see this. At the bottom here, with those fertilizers, the powder form, we would just sprinkle that around the bottom here, a cup, 4 ounces to 8 ounces, which is a cup, around each plant. And then we'll just water that in. You can lightly scratch it into the surface or into the mulch, or that tea way. The other one with the foliar feeding, you could just mix that up. It's an ounce per gallon of that product. It goes a super long way. We have the gallon, and then we have a 32-ounce quart. And you'll just mix it up in a sprayer, and you can spray your plants. It'll soak in and give it a quicker feeding, which is great.
Check this out, Josiah. We're growing celery.
You're going to be chewing for a while.
Fully organic. Yep, I like that.
Water with floss.
Yep. All right. So maybe we should get to the way we built this place.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. As promised, we wanted to show you the garden that we made for ourselves, to where we grow different varieties. We test our fungicides, our pesticides, our fertilizers, and our soil. We should have started with the soil.
Yeah, we'll get there then.
Nuts. We should. Vanna, where's our soil? All right. First of all, let me tell you how we constructed it first, okay? And then I'll go get the soil, and we'll do that.
Cool.
Because that's important.
We can go over that.
Okay. All right. On ours is 3 high of your typical cinder block, which you can find anywhere. The reason why we went 3 high is that it's easy to bend over, okay? and I'm not getting any younger, and it's worked out fabulous for me. So typically we harvest everything at eye level, eye level or down.
Convenient. Yeah. Really.
And so that's why we went 3 high. The first material that we used to get our bottom row level was chat.
Yep, which is crushed limestone. So basically, as our footer, we went through, we dug a little bit of a trench and put down crushed limestone where we're going to be setting our blocks on.
That was the hardest part.
Yeah, it really was. And then we just tempered it down.
Yep.
And started setting our blocks.
Yeah, and that was the hardest part, folks, because it takes a lot. You spend most of your time on that first level. Because if you get that level, your whole structure will be level.
And everything will just come together really nicely.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Really nicely.
Yep.
You won't have problems with your blocks tipping or, you know, so it is worth it.
So after we got our first level, if you look down here, you see this glue right here? We didn't concrete these. That's called F26. F26 is the most powerful adhesive that I know of, and Josiah has experience in construction, and we both agree that F26 doesn't move these.
Now, we did concrete our corners just because this is really about a 3 or 4 foot wall.
Right.
We didn't want that busting out for any reason. We don't think it would have with that F26, but just as an extra precautionary, we went ahead and just put concrete in the corners to hold those together.
They'll get hit with wheelbarrows and carts and stuff like that all the time.
Absolutely, and it does.
Yep. And okay, and so last year, okay, this right here is special gauge wire. It's 2 different gauges. I can't remember. It's like I have a thicker gauge going long ways.
Yep.
And a smaller gauge going this way.
Yeah.
I got it from a hardware store out there in
Decatur.
Yep. The hardware store in Decatur carries this, and it's worth the trip because it matters. Nobody carries this heavy gauge.
Sure. And these are hog panels. So if you don't know what this is, you can ask any place or tractor supply store. And these are just hog panels. We started out by zip tying these.
But they didn't have
together.
the gauge that I wanted. It was only that hardware store in Decatur. That
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha. We ended up zip tying these, and then we actually came back with hog nose rings from a tractor supply store. Or tractor haul store, whatever you want to call it, and we came back and we just tied these hog panels together with those, and it became pretty sturdy. What I do want to talk about, something that we ran into last year, was when we had the weight of everything growing up on here. It was kind of leaning to one side, or sinking into the flower beds. And so towards the end of last fall, we actually secured those into the block wall, and
all you used was those electrical, a 1/2-inch electrical
casing. I forget what you call them, but there's those little rings that you just screw into the wall to hold the electrical casing up. So, and that worked great.
And then Josiah put these in, and we have U-bolts or
those staples.
U-staples, big U-staples on the top. I can feel about 3 of them on each side, and that keeps it from swaying and supports the weight.
Correct.
So I think that, don't hold me to it, but I think that hardware store was 16 gauge going across, or long ways, and 12 gauge going long ways.
I think that may be the case.
16, 12. And that makes a big, huge difference. I want people to do it right the first time. And then Josiah put this insulation around each one of our doorways because it kept taking my hat off.
Yeah, this also, you know, when you have that rough cut right there, you have those sharp edges. We just also wanted to make sure nobody got cut walking past here, walking through here. Last year, the reason we wanted to put these up in our garden is because last year we had melons and cantaloupe growing everywhere, and just the weight of them was really kind of pulling down on this, and it was noticeable. So we just wanted to make sure that wasn't going to be a problem going into our other growing seasons.
Well, and then we put plastic on this during the winter time, and we grow this is a cold frame. So we grow our cucumbers like brassicas.
There you go.
That's your cabbage, your kale, your cool season plants is what we grow in this starting.
Yeah.
Early fall, all the way through
Broccoli,
broccoli,
cauliflower,
Brussels
yeah.
sprouts, all the way through the winter time. And so we'll cover this with plastic, and you can do the same thing just by getting 1x2s. You can screw it in with the cement screws, and then put your plastic over that, and then take another 1x2 and screw that into that previous 1x2 on the side of your cinder block.
Yeah.
And on each side, Josiah put in a really nice door.
Yeah.
Yep. Just made out of 1x4s and 2x4s.
And all I used for the hardware was I picked up at a hardware store. They are
Gate?
Yeah, gate for gates. So basically you can get those anywhere. It comes in a set. Wasn't too expensive.
Yeah, it was.
But it came with the.
That was expensive.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was too expensive.
Everything's up. It came with you know, the hinges and then a latch to latch the doors.
Yep.
And that's all we used for those.
And I'm so glad we did this because it's a permanent structure that we'll be able to use for the next 30 years.
And grow all seasons long. Every season we can grow
It's
in.
paid off in spades. All right. Now, I'll go get the soil so we can show people what soil we use.
Okay. Well, actually, I want to go over with our soil how we filled these up. It can get kind of expensive if you're filling up new flower beds. And so why don't you tell them what we actually put at the bottom?
Oh, firewood.
Here.
Yeah. All this is not soil, but I was going to get into that after I get the soil. Let me go get the soil.
Whatever, man. Do what you want.
We're going to do that.
All right. Well, tell me about your soil mixture, Mark.
That was goofy.
Was it?
Yes. All right. Well, we decided to bring you on over here because that's too heavy for me.
Lazy.
We call this our Magnificent Seven because the soil mixture that we use is 7 bags.
Yeah.
It is 1 bag of your Canadian peat moss, 5 bags of your cottonburr compost, and 1 bag of vermiculite.
What's vermiculite?
Okay. Vermiculite is volcanic rock that is heat treated. It's very special actually because the reason why it's so important is it has high CEC content, which is cation exchange capacity, meaning that it actually has the electrical charge. So it not only gives you good porosity, and I'll explain why that's important, but it also holds the minerals right there in the root zone until the plant is ready for it. This sucker right here is extremely important. And the horticultural grade is what you want in your raised beds, okay?
So if it's volcanic rock, isn't it already heat treated?
No.
Okay.
Because they heat it up even more. I don't know really how they do it, but it puffs up into a silver structure. It's kind of a cool process. But
glittery.
It gives you, it not only holds your minerals, but it gives you porosity. And that, oh my word, when I had the radio show, that was the #1 problem that people had with their tomato plants. My tomato plants are green, but they're not growing. Well, the reason being is that you don't have good porosity in your soil. And what vermiculite does, it gives you that perfect mixture of water holding capacity and porosity. Because that root zone has to breathe or it won't operate whatsoever.
So what is porosity?
Porosity is the amount of air that you have in the soil.
Okay.
So like in clay soils, clay has a high CEC content also because of its micron size, 0.002 millimeters. So it has a natural electric charge, but the sad thing about clay is that it doesn't have any porosity and the roots can't breathe. All right? So clay is actually good, but yet bad.
So it makes it loamy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Silty, farmer's rule of thumb years ago was 1/3 sand, 1/3 clay, and 1/3 organic matter. Okay?
Okay.
So for years that was the farmer's rule of thumb. And the vermiculite takes the place of your sand. #1, sand is heavy. It's a smaller it's a smaller micron. It's 0.2 millimeters. This is bigger and it's a lot lighter. I mean, this is very light. I can pick it up, all right?
Why don't you tell us about this one? This one is not light.
Right, and
you can't pick it up.
That's right. This is, thanks. This is 3.8 compressed cubic feet of Canadian peat moss. Canadian peat moss is a lot better than your Michigan peat moss. It's a tad more expensive, but it's a lot more important because the fibers of your Canadian peat moss are a lot better than your Michigan peat moss. It holds water a lot better, has a
Agreed.
longer residual. And in all honesty, in Canada, you don't have nearly the problems with disease from your Canadian peat moss. So it's very important. And Fertilome, it honestly is the least expensive of any other Canadian peat moss on the market.
It doesn't allow your plants to get root rot
Yes.
because of the Canadian peat moss,
Yeah.
but also because of the it does add more of that porosity in there.
Right. And so this is your water holding capacity. This is your porosity and nutrient holding abilities. This right here, he mentioned root rot. This is Cottonburg compost, and I like Back to Nature. It's one of my favorite companies. You use 5 bags of this, and that is your last ingredient. So it's 1, 1, 5. Cottonburg compost resists your plant from having root rot for one thing. It is a legume, cotton seed hulls, so it adds nitrogen to your soil for that very good growth. And we mix all 3 of these together, and it makes around what, 20 cubic yards?
So 20
18?
cubic feet.
20 cubic feet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And this is what we used in our raised bed back there. And Josiah mentioned that we 3 high, what is that? About 16 times 3. How many inches is that? 6. Each one of those boxes 12 inches, 36.
you're gonna put me on spot.
So, all right, our raised bed back there is about 36 inches tall,
Okay.
maybe 32, 36.
Yeah.
All right, 3 high. On the bottom of that raised bed, we do not have this at the bottom. We put in a layer of firewood, and what that does is, number one, it's cheap. All right, it's just firewood, and we put in twigs as filler, leaves.
Yeah,
really
you can really put any old organic matter,
Yeah.
that old leaf pile you have sitting out in the back,
Right.
use it.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah, and so that's at the bottom of it because you don't need the whole raised bed with the Magnificent 7.
You really just need about 16 to 18 inches,
18
for
inches.
tomatoes and peppers.
Yep.
Other stuff you could get around with 12, but really that 16 to 18 inches gives you a really good buffer for a really healthy plant.
Right, and we have about 18 inches in there because that raised bed is now 32 inches tall.
Now, the other thing I want to say about this, we actually use this and sell this for when we plant trees
Yep.
or shrubs.
Yep.
If you have a lot of clay in your soil,
Yep.
this also helps break up that clay.
Yeah.
And really great to start your plants in.
Yeah, and so back to the firewood though. If you read the book East of Eden, or I forget, Eden Gardening or something of that nature, the firewood also gives you beneficial insects. So the wood that you have on the bottom, as you fertilize, it's decomposing that organic material on the bottom. And so after a while, you'll have that really good organic matter because all your nitrogen goes down. Microbial growth will take care of that wood on the bottom. And before you know it, you have the best raised bed ever. And we're about there.
It's also a great home for mycorrhiza, and
Yep.
it helps feed that mycorrhiza, which in turn feeds your plants.
Yep.
So,
Mycorrhiza, what it is, it's a beneficial fungi. On a plant, you have your taproot, you have your root, and then you have your lateral roots, and then you have root hairs, which you can't see. Mycorrhiza is a microscopic fungi that attaches to the root hair, and it breaks down the elements from the vermiculite is holding into usable form for the plant to use.
right.
So
Well,
hopefully that makes sense.
That plant, it'll have a symbiotic relationship with that plant that
Yep.
we can add in. And that mycorrhiza has a mutual relationship with the plant, with any of your plants. And it will, the plant will exchange carbs and sugar to the mycorrhiza in exchange for those nutrients, minerals, and moisture when we're in a drought. So it does help a lot.
Doesn't Royal Gold have mycorrhiza in all of their products?
I do believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. All right.
So
So pretty much that's it. Oh, let's talk about comments and
Yeah.
if
If you have any garden questions, when we had the radio show, you were able to call into the radio show and ask us questions. Well, we're doing this now. So you can actually leave in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe. That will help us out. It'll push the algorithm out there so we can help more gardeners out there with their garden. And but yeah, you can actually, in the comments, you can type out your question, ask any gardening questions. We'll try to answer those on these upcoming shows.
Like on the radio show, one person will have a question that pertains to them, but you need to understand, there's hundreds and thousands of other people that have the same question.
Right, and so you're helping, by you asking those questions, it helps other gardeners get the answers they're looking for.
And if there's a topic that you want us to talk about, we'll do that as well. So please communicate with us through the comments.
Great. Hey, thank you all for watching this episode. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.